Hello, this is Anna from Madame So, and today we're going to continue with our three-part series on how to make a quilted pillow cover, not pillow top. So in part one, we learned how to make half square triangles. We made our 16 blocks, and now we're ready to put them together into a quilt. So we're going to talk about design, about moving them around, and learning, how to decide on our final design for the pillow cover. And I'm going to show you a couple of techniques. One is how to get organized for quilting, especially if you take a liking to this and are planning on doing some larger quilts. It will be very useful to know how to keep everything organized so that you can stop. Quilting is it's not a quick thing, so you'll have to start and stop many times, and it's nice to have all your blocks set up in a way where you can just drop it and come back to it without any trouble. So we'll talk about that, and I'll also show you a few techniques on how to iron your seams and how to get things so that you can get those corners of those tips of the triangles matched nicely. So let's just do it. The materials for your tutorial are going to be a 1/4 inch foot, pins, masking tape, a marker, and your sewing clips. Well, here's our basic design, and in fact I really like it just like this, just the 4 rows with the same print in each row. But there's plenty you could do. You could, follow the same little design and group them in squares like this, right? So that is also nice. You could make some chevrons, or actually no, this is like a fake flying geese, although we would normally put them in this direction, right? Just okay. Such a simple turn, and I can't mess it up. There we go. So this is like a fake flying geese here, although you got to be careful when you're doing this with your directional prints, okay, because they're never going to match unless you intentionally cut your squares, in opposite directions. But I like this anyway. And you could also mix up your prints. They don't have to be, they could go like this. You could just mix them up like that, or even more, mix them up like this, so these two are not next to each other. So there are a number of things that you can do just by keeping the same shape, but mixing up your prints. One of my favorites, pinwheels. Gotta I get this right? Hold on. No, they need to be pointing to the center. There we go. Here. Pinwheels, I think, are really lovely, and to have just your 4. There we go. These, and these, and we will do the same with these guys here. You could do some candy stripes, and let's see if I can get this right here. I have one here. The thing here with the stripes is that you do have to mix the prints. There is no way you can get your stripes without mixing up. Okay, let's see. There. Continue our line that way. This way. So you would have to really think about how you want to mix this up. If you want to have alternating, you could do this, just alternate certain prints. Where's the other one over here? So that would look nice, and then you could have this here and here like that.
although this leaves you with this 4 of the same here, but let's see what we could do. Maybe mix this up like that. Okay, so if you have 4 prints of each, you know, if you have 4 squares of each print, you would have to mix them, because this one obviously takes 7, so there's no way you can have solid lines of the same print unless you intentionally cut them that way, which you could do. You could just make these little diamonds like this, and you could do them in the same print, or you could mix them up like this. Let's see how they look with the same print. See, you could make, you know, like there is really, just play with them, because it's a lot of fun. This is my favorite part. I could like be playing with this and trying to make up my mind for hours. See, you can make some chevrons, and you can have like a very definite chevron in the middle, and then just, you know, go with different prints on the sides. This way, mixing them up like that. And maybe we could do this. And there, so you get the effect, but then this is very prominent, or you could just mix them all up, and you know, they don't have to be. Oops, wrong way. There we go. So you still have a chevron, but with different prints. There is really so much you can do. So play with them, move them around, maybe even introduce, you know, a surprise print or a surprise solid that goes, you know, just gives a pop somewhere unexpected. You could also just have something very regular, you know, like let's go back to our first iteration here, where they were all in their little rows, all being very nicely behaved. But then you can just put something that's out of order, even maybe even without like changing the print, just change the direction of that square. You know, that adding a little bit of the unexpected, something that breaks the order and the regularity, can be very nice, can be really, you know, it really makes your eye go there and start taking, you know, the design into account. I do love playing with positive and negative space, and squares really, you know, lend themselves very nicely to that. You can have like the white squares in the middle that are really, you know, very prominent, or you can have them like receding into the background, or you can mix them up and have like that X in the center where you're like mixing up the print in the middle. So, you know, squares are a nice way to play with these prints. So decide on your design, and then we'll come back and I'll help you organize it. And this is something that you'll be able to use for any size project. So this is a very simple system. Okay, we're going to think of our design as rows, and of course having the same print kind of really emphasizes that. This is what I ended up deciding on, and I switched one of my prints. I switched this gray for the other floral. But you know, you could have pinwheels and it would still be the same. We would think of our design as in having 4 rows, okay, 1, 2, 3, and 4, that are composed of 4 blocks. And of course, in a bigger project, there would be more rows and more blocks. And we're simply, the only real thing we're going to do is we're going to take a little masking tape, and you could use other ways of marking. You could use, you know, a non-permanent marker. Just make sure that it's not heat erasable, because you're going to have to press your seams as you're going, and you still need to know that this is your first row, and it's also your left square. Okay, you're starting on the left. just in case you forget that you started on the left. So the one that's going to be on top is going to be the left. This is going to be 2. Three. And 4. Okay. So as far as marking, that's all we're going to do. And now we're going to stack each row in order, like this, with the left square on top. I'm going to do the same with all of them. And I like to actually clip them together. My clips here, because this way I can just, you know, I could now go pick up my kids from school and I would know exactly, even if I had a really complicated design where things were, you know, this is pretty simple and I think I can remember how I did it. But, you know, if I had a large quilt and I had, oh, I need one more. And I had different designs, I could just do this. And I would know exactly what to do when I bring it to the machine without having to worry about them, you know, being out of order. They could be like this, they could be turned around, you know, somebody could put them in a basket and, you know, they're all together and I can tell exactly how I need to sew them. So let's go and do that at the machine. So here are my stacks. I have them all here. And I'm going to pick up the first one. And I'm going to grab my left square. And then the next one, and make sure we're keeping them, we're not turning them, okay? Keeping them in the same way. And I'm going to place the second square, I'm just going to flip it over the first one, and I'm adding it to the right, so that's what's going to be my seam on the right. And I have my 1/4 inch foot width guide, which I really highly recommend for these because it's going to give you very accurate seams, and the more accurate your seam, the better matching of your blocks later. So if you want to pin, by all means pin. It's a very short seam, so you don't really need to. And you're just going to sew a simple 1/4 inch seam. Now we're just going to open it, get the next square, again making sure we're not turning it, and we're going to repeat the same thing. Just match the edges. If you want to pin, and run your 1/4 inch seam. This machine I have to manually bring the needle down or it will become unthreaded. Hopefully you don't need to do that. And do the same thing with the last. Remember, you're always adding to the right. So you open, you grab your square, making sure you're not turning it, and you add it to the right. Match your edges and run it through, and then do the same with the other 3 strips. And then I'll show you how to put them together in a minute. All right, so here are our 4 strips ready to go. But before we join them, we need to make sure that our seams are ready to be put together the right way. So I'm going to turn them all around. And it doesn't matter if you do it this way or if you do it this way, as long as they're all in the same direction. Okay, so I'm going to iron these guys towards this side. Oops. And I don't want to disrupt that center seam, that diagonal seam there. Okay. So this is 1, and I'm going to do 3 in the same direction. Just move this out of the way a little bit. And they are starched, so they are a little stiff. You may want to damp them a little more. We're going to do these two in the other direction. So I'm just going to come at them from this side. And what this means is that when we put them together, the bulk of the seam is going to go in opposite directions. And that's going to make it a lot easier to go through that seam and also to match your corners. Okay, so now we're going to sew 1 and 2 together, and all we're going to do is we're going to flip 2 over 1, and we're going to sew 3 and 4 together, and we're going to flip 4 over 3. Okay, and now we're going to use our pins. And now the trick is, actually this is the seam that we're going to pay attention to that. This is the seam that you're sewing now. I mean, sorry, this is the seam that you're sewing. Okay, so just grab it. Okay, and what we're going to do is we're going to insert the pin right in the seam and go. You're not going through the seam allowance, you're going right in there. And it's a little tricky, it's worth taking your time. Okay, doing this. Make sure that it's coming out in the right spot. And now, again in this direction. Okay, so that's your first one. See how nicely nested they are, how they match against each other. All right, and this is just another simple 1/4 inch seam. I still have my 1/4 inch foot on. I've added a pin at the beginning and the end just for extra safety to keep everything in place. And you're just going to run it through and remove the pins as you go. Just keep an eye on the direction of the seams. I have the seams that will run along with the feet dogs, see, on the bottom of the machine, so that will help me. If yours don't, see what's happening here? So that can happen at the bottom too. Just, you know, be aware when you get to those seams and make sure that they're in the right spot and they're getting under. Lift your foot a little bit. It slows you down a little bit if you need to lift your foot, but you know, the end result will be better. And that's it. Just do the same with the other 2 strips. Okay, so here are our rows joined together, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and we're just going to repeat the process. We're going to pin all the seams together and we're going to run it through the machine just like we did with the other 2. And here it is. We're all done with this step. Let's just remove the tape. And you know, masking tape is pretty good because even with all that ironing, it's leaving no residue on my fabric. So choose a decent masking tape. Don't buy the cheapest one you can find.
All done with this part. I hope it's been useful. I hope you've learned some new techniques that you can use for your future quilting. And as always, follow us on Instagram, follow us on Facebook, subscribe here on YouTube. We have so many useful things for you. And I hope to see you on part 3, where we'll learn to, finally turn this into a pillow cover. We'll do some quilting and we'll learn how to insert the zipper in the back. I'll see you.